Welcome to Strangers and Pilgrims, a UK-based Christian podcast to encourage the saints in the days of our pilgrimage. My name's Stephen White, and I'm recording in Bradford in West Yorkshire on a beautiful, misty December cold morning. Mike, over to you.
Yeah, hi, so I'm Mike Tyler. I am a teacher of teachers, and I live in the Black Country, just a bit further south than Stephen, but it's still cold and misty here, but quite pleasant all the same. We're gonna have a reading in this episode. We're going back to the Noahic covenant again for a little bit more of a look at that. We're going to pick up where we left off with a particular loose end that I posed to you last time, Steve.
Yeah.
So we can have a quick think about that. But before we do that, we'll go back to Genesis 9 and just have our reading. So I'm going to be doing the reading this time. So this is what the Bible says in Genesis chapter 9, and reading again from verse 1 just down to verse 11. So this is the Noahic covenant, or at least the first part of it. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Even as the green herb have I given you all things. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man. At the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. And you, be ye fruitful and multiply. Bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. And God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark, to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. Okay. So we're going to be thinking a little bit. We're going to look at the idea of fear and dread and what it means that the fear and dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth. But we'll get there in just a second. We were talking last time about the command to be fruitful and to multiply and to replenish the earth. And I think we came to a bit of a conclusion that we think that it's a normative command, or it's a command that means that it is normative for Christians to be fruitful. And we said that in its sort of primary application, its main application is with regards to the bearing of children, that Christians should marry, and that what flows from that marriage should be children. And the intention of God is that the human race multiplies, and that is the natural means by which God has ordained the multiplication of the human race. With the intention that we replenish the earth. And we did have a bit of back and forth as to exactly what replenish might mean in that context. And then, again, one of the things that I'm often interested in is kind of the boundary conditions. Like how do we define, when we're talking about what's normative, where does that leave then the outliers? Are the outliers then outside of the command, or are they on the edges but still within the command? And so sometimes it's helpful to look at those kind of outliers to kind of really nail down exactly what we're saying. So we're gonna do that with one of the loose ends. So again, I'm just gonna ask the question again and turn you to the passage. So the question that I was asking was around something that Paul says in 1 Corinthians. So in 1 Corinthians and chapter 7, Paul is talking about marriage, okay, particularly in the context of fornication and the avoiding of fornication through sort of the grace of marriage. He says it's good for a man not to touch a woman, nevertheless to avoid fornication. So he's rooting this in the avoidance of sin, sexual temptation, and so on. But then he says in verse 6, so this is 1 Corinthians 7:6, but I speak this by permission and not of commandment. That's related to the preceding comment. For I would that all men were even as I myself, I think the assumption there is what he means is single. Okay. But every man hath his proper gift of God, one after this manner, and another after that. I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. So Paul seems here to be still within the bounds of the Noahic covenant. He's still centering the importance of marriage, but he's kind of taking a slightly different tack, if you like. He's talking about marriage as a means to avoid fornication, which is actually in the I think, is it the Book of Common Prayer, or
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, the marriage. It's one of the key things is to avoid fornication.
Yeah.
So we're happy with that. At least if you're happy with the BCP, we're happy with that. So what would you say then if somebody were to say to you, look, Paul is saying here that I don't have to get married, and actually he's saying it's good for me not to get married, and how would you square that up, or what approach might you take squaring that up with the Noahic covenant command to be fruitful and to multiply?
Yep. Good questions all around. So where to tackle this from? I think Paul here actually establishes lots of the principles we've already agreed on. And he does this not explicitly, but by contrast. So, for example, he says that, and we'll address this in a bit, that it's good to not be married in certain circumstances. But those circumstances are if you can avoid fornication without any trouble by not being married. Now, that's going to exclude almost everyone by experience, because most people would really struggle to be sexually pure in body and in mind. And the mind, as we know from the New Testament, is really important. This isn't just, can I physically abstain from something?
Sure.
It's, can you mentally be pure as well? And so if you can't do that, then you should get married if at all possible. And so actually, I think that establishes the normative nature of it from human experience. Because you look at the history of the church, even those who've taken vows of celibacy and tried to live celibate lives, lots of them have failed, ended up either with impure thoughts or with impure actions, or both.
Yeah. It's a very common refrain, isn't it? It's not a refrain, but very common experience that, it crops up in the news every few weeks. There's another Catholic priest or another Anglican priest or whatever they call themselves in the Anglican Church, again, who has been almost institutionally pressured to be celibate, and is just not able to receive it. Let's put it in the terms of Matthew 19.
Yeah. So because Paul says it's good to be as he is, that doesn't mean it's best to be as he is. Now, I think he thinks for him it is best.
Sure.
And that's not a problem.
Sure.
Because we talked earlier that not everyone has to be married to be obedient to God. It's just normative. And actually, Jesus talks about this. He said there are some eunuchs, some have made themselves eunuchs, some are made of men, and some are eunuchs for the kingdom of God's sake. Yeah. And so I think there are those who are set apart to a life of singleness as a gift of God outside of the normal pattern. But that's also part of the normal pattern, because God has planned for it and prepared for it. So a bit like Samson and the Nazarite vow, the growing of your hair without cutting was not normal in Israel. In fact, wouldn't be right outside of the Nazarite vow. But there's a special circumstance there that God gifted people for. And actually thinking about it, I think the Nazarite vow might have included sexual abstention as well, which means Samson also failed at that as well. But you see, so God makes provision for the gifted single person, and Paul is here. He's affirming that as a good thing, which we want to do as well. And we want to say God has given a good gift to some people, but I think there's been great damage done over the last few decades by saying, if you happen to be single, that is a gift from God.
Okay, so that was going to be my question. So can we come back to the the phrase "the gift of singleness" in just a
Yeah.
moment. But I just want to read that verse from, or a couple of verses from Matthew 19 about eunuchs. So just I've got it on the screen here. So
Yep.
so Jesus said unto them, so Matthew 19:11, all men cannot receive this saying, save they to whom it is given. So that's important. For there are some eunuchs which were born so from their mother's womb, and there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men. And this is the key bit, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. So that I think we're putting Paul into that category as
Right.
one who was able to receive it, and therefore, as you're saying, it was right for him, it was good for him to receive that, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't affect the normative nature, that kind of I guess numerically, the numerical majority of Christians are encouraged to get married, where it's possible, where it's not sin for other reasons. That it would be a good thing for Christians to be married and then to be fruitful. And again, I want to talk about fruitfulness again in a minute with regard to the Apostle Paul. But you seem to make a suggestion that you were not necessarily fully on board with the idea of singleness as a gift. And I know that there is some out in internet world, there is some kind of discussion that the preaching of singleness as a gift, rather than as a well, I'll let you flesh it out. Actually, is singleness a gift, and in what sense is it a gift, and in what sense is that not a helpful designation?
Singleness can be a gift,
okay,
but it is not necessarily a gift.
Okay,
and I think that's clear from the Matthew passage.
To
Like
whom it is given.
It's given, but there's a double aspect to it. It is given, and it needs to be able to be received.
Right.
And thirdly, it needs to be received. So I think someone can actually be gifted with the gift of singleness, by God, and choose not to be single.
Okay.
Like because I don't think God forces you.
Okay.
Into that choice. So it's even a smaller subset of people who actually live a single life of gifting directly from God as they should. And I think Paul is one of them. And they're around, and I'm sure we know people who actually, it does seem like God has gifted them with it. Now, when God gifts, he doesn't gift like absolutely perfectly usually. Like if he gives someone a gift of teaching, that doesn't mean at any point, without any preparation, they can stand up and give a perfect teaching. But it does mean God gives them the tools, the skills, the basic things that he builds
context. In the context of a fallen world, in the context of pressures from within and from without. Yeah.
So that would apply to singleness as well. But if you have no natural inclination to singleness, if you struggle with sexual temptation, then it's a fair old chance that you don't have the gift of singleness. Just like if every time you tried to speak and teach, you stuttered, you were petrified by fear, you couldn't get over it, you didn't make any sense. And if that was like the consistent pattern over a year of you trying to teach, chances are you don't have the gift of teaching. And it's the same with singleness. Like if it is a constant struggle against either sexual impurity, loneliness, a feeling that don't have a companion, all the things that marriage gives you. It's not just about the sex, it's about direction, it's about love and covenant with another person. If you're struggling,
mutual comfort is the wording, isn't it?
And that wording is really good.
I think it's fantastic. In the BCP.
And so if it's like a daily struggle against that, you can be single and honor God, and you can be single and do the right thing, but you're not gifted for it. And I think there's been a strain of teaching for the last, I remember it when I was like 17, 18 being around. So it's been around for a while, that at any point in your life, if you are single, that's a gift from God.
Sure.
And they mean it's a gift like it was for Paul.
Right.
And I think that is not just wrong, it's damaging.
Yeah, sure.
Because you're pushing people who need normatively and probably personally the comfort, the challenge, the intimacy of marriage. You're trying to convince them that actually God has gifted them to not need that.
And I think Paul is pretty clear here in 1 Corinthians 7 that for those, like you're saying, that for those who are single but don't have the gift of singleness, um, as we're defining it, like it's literally been something that God has given them and they've received it. The key aspect, I think, is the avoidance of fornication.
He makes that the key aspect.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
there's lots of things we could talk about, the benefits of marriage and so on, and there are plenty of them. But Paul is making a big deal out of the avoidance of fornication.
Yeah.
And I think it's true right through, I mean, right through the teaching in the New Testament and right through the narratives of the Old Testament, that fornication is a critical point of sin for most people.
That's a really good point.
That's why marriage, it ought to be normative, because it's a good because it is a bulwark against the sin of fornication.
Yeah.
That's one of the many reasons it's for, and Paul is making it here one of the central reasons.
Yeah, there's two really, really important things there. One is that the narrative of the Old Testament is really confirmatory about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it shows us again and again, and the qualifications for elders and things like this make it really important in leadership.
Yeah.
But the thing that sort of spins off from that is that, and this is where the church really needs to do more. I mean, I don't think they're doing enough to make marriage normative, but I also don't think they're doing enough to make clear that just ticking a box of being married is not enough.
Sure.
Like, that's the starting point for the normative, sort of fruitful Christian life. But it's not the end point. That's the start. And, the Old Testament narrative teaches us this as well. You can be married and still struggle with the problem of fornication.
Sure.
Look at David.
Yeah.
Look at Abraham. Look at Samson. Like, there are loads and loads of examples of this temptation coming in to marriage. And we need to be teaching, yes, marriage is the normal way to help this temptation, but you also need to work on it. It's not an automatic fix, like anything in this broken world. You're going to need to train your mind, train your affections, especially if you've had exposure to pornography over a long period of time. That will have shaped your opinion of women, what they're like, how they behave, how they think, how they react. You're going to need to uncatechize yourself from that and learn how to love a real woman in the real world. I know I'm focusing this particularly at men because I'm men, but the converse works as well.
Yeah.
Like, we need to work on marriage, because we need to not just sort of package this up as a get married and all your troubles with the sin of fornication will go away.
Yeah.
Now, it is the best thing God has got for you for that. I want to emphasize that as well.
Yeah.
Like, there is nothing like it. But you can waste that good gift as well if you're not careful. And we see it, unfortunately, in really high divorce rates.
Yeah.
Even in Christian circles. And I think fornication, the big ones are fornication and money.
Yeah. Well, I think this passage that we're looking at in 1 Corinthians 7 makes that point very clearly, because Paul moves very quickly onto divorce. Yeah. About putting away, doesn't he? Yeah. He's clearly linking these things.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. You said there was a second point you were going to make.
No, the second one was that that marriage is the start, not the end.
Okay.
Actually, the experience of married Old Testament saints failing, with sexual immorality is a stark warning to us to not be complacent in our marriages. Yeah,
that's great. So one last point from me on this, and then we'll go to the Noahic covenant and move on to the next part of it about the fear and dread. But my last point is, we've talked about the importance of fruitfulness, and so I think we've made fruitfulness kind of the overarching purpose of marriage. And we said in the previous episode that fruitfulness for most people, in the context of kind of normatively, that is fruitfulness of the womb, if you like. But for Paul here, you could not accuse Paul of not being fruitful. And so I think that's an important point. So he was still fulfilling the fruitfulness aspect. He talks, doesn't he, about later on? He talks. Is it in is it in Philemon? He talks about him being his own son, doesn't
Yeah, I
he?
think
In
I
the
think he says
faith
it
and so on.
in Timothy as well. Timothy,
That's
my
right.
own son, after the,
That's right. So
yeah,
so there's this aspect of Paul's fruitfulness that is within the bounds of the Noahic covenant. He is being fruitful in that sense. He's and helping to kind of multiply in that regard. But his singleness does not put him outside of
yeah,
the command of the covenant.
yeah. I think that's a lovely point. And if I put it this way, the Noahic covenant, as we've touched on briefly in the introduction, has a natural end. The
Yeah,
end of the Noahic covenant is the end of the physical earth that
yeah,
God will one day renew. And so we're working within that framework because God gave it to us and it's good and we should work within it. But actually, it will end. But what Paul was doing, the fathering in a spiritual sense
yeah.
of people being born again, that will have no end.
Right.
Those souls
Yeah,
that are saved through
good.
Paul's ministry will live with God in bliss
Yeah,
forever.
yeah. That's good.
That's a fruitfulness that transcends the end of the Noahic covenant.
Yeah,
And we need to
yeah,
establish that
yeah.
that
That's
is
great.
even more important than just having children in this earth.
Yeah.
But what I don't want to minimize is that the way for most of us to have that kind of eternal impact
Hmm.
is to live ordinary married Christian lives.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. And so that is. I mean, we could riff on this forever, couldn't
Yeah.
we? But that reminds me of Isaiah 9,
Yes.
and where the Lord Jesus himself obviously had no natural progeny, and
Yeah.
yet he is, of course, he's the archetypal man. He's the man. He's the God man, and so therefore he is the most fruitful of us.
Yeah. He's the
And in,
everlasting Father.
very good. Yes, very good. And so of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're saying about Paul, in that those that he has birthed in Christ will live eternally, and that fruit is going to last way beyond the end of the Noahic covenant, and way beyond the point at which we're as individual saved Christian people in the eternal state beyond our marriages.
Yeah.
As well.
That's right.
So the fruit will remain.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Right. That's
good
well,
stuff.
I mean, there's more we could say, isn't there? But let's go back to Genesis 9, and I'm just going to read again a couple of verses that we can start to think about. So Genesis 9, 2 and 3. So this is again diving right back into the Noahic covenant. The fear of you and the dread of you. So this is the Lord speaking to Noah and his sons. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. So it seems to me the point that's being made here is that there's a double aspect to it. Part of the aspect to it is around the eating of meat. So we know that the King James often uses the term meat to mean food broadly.
Yeah.
So although when we talk about meat, we usually mean the flesh of an animal, but and there is some clarification around that in verse 4. But what we eat is being broadened out.
Yeah.
So prior to the Noahic covenant, I think it's fair to say that Genesis teaches us that prior to the flood and the inauguration of this covenant, that humanity was vegetarian.
That's right.
There was no eating of flesh prior to that point, and so God is instituting the eating of flesh at this point. But then in verse 2, there's this idea that, again, it's a two-pronged idea, that the beasts will be fearful of man, on the one hand, and that man, or the beasts have been delivered into man's hand.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got those two things together. So this tells us something about the nature of creation and how we're supposed to rule over creation. Okay, so this is often referred to as the creation mandate, that Adam was placed in a garden and he was asked to till the land and to to subdue it, and so on. And that is being reinforced here with Noah and his sons, that they are to take dominion, okay, over the land. So there's some discussion about what that means. What does that look like? Obviously, we live in a culture that's very sensitive around nature and around the environment. And growing up in school, we're constantly bombarded with man is degrading the environment, man is damaging things. There are people who are vegan because they refuse to countenance the idea of eating the flesh of beasts and all this sort of stuff. So there's lots of this stuff that's not just confined to Genesis chapter 9, but is relevant for today in terms of our practice as Christians, and how we respond to the world that has maybe misaligned priorities in terms of the environment. What do you understand by the phrase, into your hand are they delivered?
Yeah, this is good. So I think it seems like the nature of the relationship between man and the natural world, man and creation, changed at the flood or after the flood. God is changing things. I think that's most drastically seen in the eating of an animal, which is now so normal for us. And great. I'm not
amazing.
It's
absolutely
so
incredible.
It's so
I
normal.
just would pause there and talk about how much I love meat.
I mean, feel free to write a soliloquy.
Yeah. And just perform it in the next one.
Yeah.
Ode to beef.
But why would you pick beef? It's like the lesser of
beef
all the meats.
It depends on how you cook it, though, doesn't it? Beef, well cooked beef is incredible.
Yeah, it is good, but
didn't Ogden Nash write something like that? I'm pretty sure Ogden Nash has got a poem about cows. Has he not?
No, he's got a cow about. I know one
how
about.
How does it go?
Well, it's not about beef.
Oh, the cows of the bovine ilk.
One end is blue, the other milk.
That's the one. Anyway, let's not get sidetracked with poetry and meat.
So yeah, and meat is great, and we'll come to this. As Christians, I think it's actually a very good thing. But here, it's a drastic thing,
right?
And I think it's easy for us to lose that because we live 4,000 years after the event. This is a drastic. I know someone's going to pick me. It's maybe 4,500 years or whatever, but thousands of years after the event. This is huge, because the relationship between man and animal is about to change, or has changed, and Noah's being informed about it. And I don't think they would be allowed to eat the animals until they've been delivered into their hands.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
So
flesh that out.
So I think it feels like the relationship before this point is more harmonious. That's how it sounds.
Okay.
In all respects.
Yeah.
Here's the first time we get the hint that an animal might kill a man.
Interesting.
I don't see any hint of that beforehand.
Yeah.
Here men are allowed to kill animals. There's no hint of that beforehand, other than for sacrificial purposes. And we know from the Lord Jesus that what he, as the fulfillment of all the types, is the willing lamb who willingly went. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all if the early sacrifices weren't like violations against animals.
Yeah.
But actually, that's why God made, or at least in his grace, that's why he provided them as a sacrifice.
Okay.
So when Abel keeps sheep, he's not keeping them for meat.
Right.
Now, he could be keeping them for milk and things like that. And he's definitely keeping them for sacrifice because God has commanded that. But that seems to be a much more harmonious setup than the one that is described here and the one that we live in now. So,
that's very interesting, because that says something about the way that the animals were housed on the ark.
Oh yeah, completely.
To what extent are we saying? Because let me just. I just want to dig in a little bit here. You're not saying, are you, that the flood means that the nature of the animal kingdom changed?
I think that, I suspect that's probably what happened. Yeah.
Okay. So almost like a second fall,
that's
just
right,
for animals.
I'd say for the whole creation, and I'd see men, maybe not a second fall, like the next step downwards in the fall.
Interesting.
We see this even with men, like the lifespan of men.
Okay.
Like this is the point it starts to radically drop. Noah still lives to 950, I think, or 900. Yeah, 950.
950. Yeah.
And he lived quite a while
Mm.
after coming off the ark. But everyone else starts to step down
Yeah.
in their lifespans.
Yeah.
And and I think this is the trajectory of the whole Earth is downwards. You might get blips of things going up and down, but I think this is a notable first step down from the fall.
That's really interesting. I've not had that thought before. So would you say that is a process that continues beyond this point? Because of course we've got and we'll discuss at some point whether there was a covenant made with Adam. Not convinced myself, but whatever. There is minimal kind of, I guess, how do we want to put it? Direct intervention in terms of rule giving or law giving by God for Adam. He's given a handful of things to keep and so on. Then we get to this and kind of the rule book, if you like, is expanded somewhat. It accounts for death more closely and so on. But and then we move further on and we look at the Mosaic covenant, and then you've got the whole of the law.
Lots more rules.
Do you say again?
Lots more rules.
Lots more rules, exactly. So are you saying that that is tracking the downward trajectory of man, and God is responding, perhaps not the right way to put it, but let's roll with it for now, as the trajectory of man tracks downwards, so God's response to man has to be increasingly, I guess, law focused?
That's
an
interesting.
The law of God becomes more and more pronounced because man's natural inclinations are worsening.
So I don't think I would put it as a case of natural inclination, because the state of man before the flood is what caused the flood.
Right. Okay.
So it's not about sinfulness necessarily. I think there is some sort of degrading in the natural world.
Okay.
And our relationship to it. It's I heard someone say, when someone says something, you think, it can't be right, and then the more you think about it, it just works away. People say what people really need, what unsaved people need, is a relationship with God. And I know what they mean when they say that. But what he said is, you already have a relationship with God.
Sure.
You're already under covenant with God.
Right.
Because you live under this.
Right.
There is a relationship between us and God already. And actually, I think God becomes more distant throughout the Old Testament. And that's why Christ is such good news, because he then renews in a more intimate way than even Adam had our relationship with God the Father.
So just talk to me about that for a second, because that's quite an important point. I think you said that God becomes more distant throughout the Old Testament. In what sense?
So if we think of the general trajectory, Garden of Eden, imperfection, God walks with Adam in the cool of the day. He's there present with him in that most perfect of environments. After the fall, Adam and Eve are ejected from the garden, and then there is still some idea of relationship. There's sacrifices by Abel to God. When Cain sins, God talks to him directly. Where God comes to Noah, Enoch walks with God.
Yeah.
So the little glimpses we have of what we sometimes call the patriarchal age, the age between the fall and the flood, are with very direct connection, like if we want to call it, verbal connection. God literally speaks to Cain, and Cain hears his voice. And the same with Enoch. He walks so closely with God, God just takes him. Noah, God speaks to Noah. When men build the Tower of Babel, so this is after the flood, God has to come down.
Sure.
God came down. Now, that's part of that language is mockery, to show the futility of what men were doing. But there's also a distance.
Right.
And then you have the proliferation of idols and that sort of stuff. Abraham is an idolater before God comes to him. He's not close already. God comes from outside, comes to him. And then jump into the Mosaic law, that period shows, and again, there's a reasonable closeness with God and the children of Israel in the pillar of cloud leading them out, all that sort of stuff. But it's mediated through Moses. A lot of God's closeness is through Moses. And then when the law is given, God is further removed from the people.
Mm.
You know, that when God comes down upon Mount Sinai to meet with Moses, they put a fence around it. If anyone, interesting, man or beast,
Yeah.
touches the mountain, they shall be thrust through with a dart.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because God is too holy, too separate.
Mm.
And this is partly because as more law is given, the more distinction is made between men and God. The holiness of God is more apparent, and so you see in the setup of the temple, the tabernacle,
Yeah.
that God is right in the center. One person's allowed in there once a year, not without blood, and then there's a small set of people who are allowed in the room next door, and then a slightly bigger set of people who are allowed in the room outside of that, and then the court outside that. Basically, it's a whole separation of keeping people away from God. Whereas you start with God, even after the fall, talking to people in an intimate way. And I'm not saying God never talks to people. It obviously came to the prophets in the Old Testament and prophets in the New Testament. But there's nothing like Enoch after that. Nothing like Noah. Nothing even like Abraham.
Well, Elijah's a bit like Enoch, but
he's a bit like Enoch. But we don't know enough about Enoch, really, to make the comparison. But like
I'll let you have it. Carry on.
The thing that we know about Enoch, that the defining thing about him is that he walked with God.
Walked with God, yeah.
And the headline of Abraham is the friend of God. Yeah. So, and we don't have any kind of reclamation of any of those titles until Christ comes and fulfills the law, because it's the law is showing us our sin, and he removes the law and removes our sin, and now we can actually be right up to God, dressed and clothed in his righteousness.
Yeah, that's great.
But until Christ, it's distance.
Yeah,
and I think that's shown in the degradation of our relationship to the world. Is a sort of it's not a parable, it's a living parable of the way things are going without Christ, without the ultimate redemption. This is the track of the world. Yeah,
that's good. I think there's it's the point is, it's sin, isn't it? It's sin that separates. And when Hebrews talks about how that Christ is separate from sinners, that's the same. That's because Christ is in very nature God. He therefore responds to, and this is why the incarnation is so incredible. He responds to sin in separating himself from sin, insofar as he's of holier eyes than to behold evil. So that there's a separation between the sin and the sinner and God, and then that's suddenly inverted in the incarnation. Not in that God ignores sin or anything like that, but God in Christ inserts himself at the bottom of sin's well, if you like. He puts himself there so that all of that sin can be all of that sin can be forgiven. So my Calvinist friends might disagree with me on that, but there we are. That's probably semantics. And that, for me, that's the importance of the incarnation as a massive turning on its head of everything that we see, the trajectory of the Old Testament, of as man, not just the nation of Israel, but the nations around Israel become increasingly depraved. And as you're saying, God, in their experience, we still hold to the kind of the doctrine of the immanence of God, that he's everywhere. But in terms of the experience of humanity, our sin makes him more and more distant from us. We have less and less of the relationship, of the fellowship that we ought to have with our Creator, because of our sin. Not because of his unwillingness, but because of our sin. And so that distance grows, and then all of a sudden, 0 BC, or maybe like 2 BC, Christ is born, and that then changes everything. That affects the entire trajectory from that point. And so that's why the incarnation for me is such a critical foundational doctrine for understanding what God is, what God is doing in the world, and who he is,
how he's making things right.
He
doesn't make things right from a distance. He makes things right by coming into it and working it out from the inside. And I think we'll tie this then back in with our passage, because what Christ does is for the soul on the cross. He redeems our souls instantly, and we have the benefit of that now. And he has won the victory over everything, but he hasn't cashed the check yet.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking especially about the creation. So
Yes.
we know post resurrection, post ascension, Romans 8.
I've literally got it in front of me right now. I was about to read it out.
Go for it. Read that passage.
Okay. So Romans 8, verse 20. For the creature, in fact, no, I'll go verse 19. For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. So this is Paul writing to the Romans after the cross. There is still something that is being waited for, and that's important. So the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same in hope, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. So timings wise, I'll read the rest in a moment. Timings wise, there is the cross, then there is the children of God, and the liberty that the children of God experience because of the cross, then the whole creation is then invited into.
At some future date.
At some future date.
From the writing of this, yeah.
Okay. Again, and then, so Paul goes on to clarify that. Verse 22, for we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. So that verse 22, we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now.
And,
so there is
until the manifestation of the sons of God. We know what the end point is. It is when the saints all receive their new bodies with Christ on
That's right. That's right. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's where we're heading.
It is, and maybe that's a good place to finish. There's so many other places we could go. But that for me is the big picture, is that the relationship of man and the world is on a degrading relationship. And as necessarily then, men need to take more control. Now, that also then lends it to the possibility of more sin. Because the more tightly you have to hold something, if you then put a sinner in charge of that tight control, you will see things go wrong. So, I get the impression that farming was hard work before the flood, but animal husbandry was probably easier,
right?
Because they were, they didn't need to like feed them up for fat and to eat and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But we do now. I actually think there's a necessity aspect to it as well, but maybe talk about that another time.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But it's harder now.
Yeah.
And actually the hardness, God subjected the creation to because of us. It is our fault that the world is groaning and travailing and waiting for release from bondage. But until that time, we still have a relationship with the world. And this fear and dread is on the animals, which means that it's not a natural. You should try. I'm sure you used to have chickens. Like trying to get a chicken that isn't familiar with you back into its run. You'll see the fear and dread. Of the animals, and that can be overcome by like time and patience and kindness and generosity, consistency of feeding and all that sort of stuff. But it's not natural. Naturally, animals are afraid of us, and God put that in the world as a signpost to say, this isn't right.
Right.
You need better than this. And there's blessings in it. We have chicken, we have turkey and all the good things.
Beef.
Let there be beef. But yeah. Should we finish it there?
Yeah, let's finish it there. Yeah, I've got loads of other questions I want to talk about. Being a child of the 90s and going through the answers in Genesis stuff. Yeah. I've got some questions around like the firmament and all that sort of stuff. Dinosaurs.
Between the Christian worldview and what we were taught at school.
Yeah.
like just constantly, and what's on the media is
Yeah.
jarring.
Yeah, hugely.
And it's too easy to lurch way too far either way.
Agreed.
So
just as we wrap up, I had a conversation with somebody at work who is, you know, very much an environmentalist, very like completely sold on the kind of the green revolution stuff. A lovely person, was astonished to hear me say that I think we ought to look after the environment.
Yeah.
She just couldn't get her head around why a Christian was saying that.
Yeah.
Because in her view, Christians are part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because we believe in the creation mandate and we believe in dominion. And her understanding of that was, we believe in chopping all the trees down and turning it all into cities.
And this is an export from America, because the package is, and I hate these packages, you're a Christian, therefore you're right wing, and you're capitalist maximalist, and that everything comes in the service of just making profit, and things. So of course you can clear forests, you can make things an ecological desert, no biodiversity, and it's funny because even like a good friend of mine, like a while ago, we're fully insane here. We now mill our own flour.
Okay.
which
I wouldn't even know how to begin.
We bought a mill, like a little electric mill. They're really good.
Okay.
But we did this, like, and a friend of mine who like knows me as, you know, the capitalist sort of thing, found that jarring.
Right.
That we would do something to be as natural as possible.
Right.
Because it's slow.
Yeah.
It's expensive compared to just buying a loaf of Chorleywood sort of processed Hovis from the shop.
Yeah.
But I don't see it as a contradiction at all. But it's something I'm growing in, the understanding of the natural world and our relationship to it. But it's all here. Like, there is a sinful way of dominating the world that Christians should be against.
Agreed.
But that's the caricature your friend has.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Lots to talk about when I talk about your slow merge into becoming Wendell Berry. But maybe I'll save that for another episode.
I am probably heading that way. I don't know whether you've got one ready.
There's no probably about it. Soon we won't even be able to do this anymore because you'll have got rid of a computer.
Well, I'll have to get a job. So if I get rid of all the internet, I might not like that. I mean, I'd move to a farm tomorrow and just work with my hands. If I had an orchard, I'd work till I'm sore. So
yes, very good. Well done.
Yeah, but I don't know whether you got one ready. Do you have a Sean question? I've forgotten.
I think I might do actually. Yeah. Let's go with. I'm just gonna pick one completely out of the blue here. So Sean's sent me a whole long list. So let's go with. So many good ones. Should Christians support gun ownership?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's great.
It's so hard. I want to give all the qualifiers. But,
no qualifiers permitted, I'm afraid.
Layla did ask some from me, and I'll have to write them down.
Yeah, okay. So. Yeah, no, I've got a big long list of them from Sean. It's great. Yeah, okay. Well, maybe, you know, it's not that pressing an issue, I don't think, here in the UK, as much as some American commentators would like to make it an issue for us. So maybe we'll talk about it at some point in season 12 or something like that. Cool. But now let's draw a line under this episode. So thanks for your time, Steve. And we'll finish with the words from Ephesians 6. Grace be with all them that love our Lord Jesus Christ in sincerity. Amen.
Amen.